What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video here. We have a lot to discuss as we are getting into what is most likely going to be yet another very crazy trading week. We had a very action-packed week this prior week, so we're going to go over a couple of things that I want everybody to know moving forward here. I think there's a lot of things that people are misunderstanding about this market right now that I want everybody watching these videos here to fully understand. And as always, we're going to be covering some of the most up-to-date and relevant pieces of news here on some of your favorite names, Neo, Palantir, HIMS, and Sofi, and also covering some of the short-term charts here to give you guys a better understanding of what to expect in the near future. So, guys, before we get into all of that information here, if you guys do enjoy the information and analysis that I provide for you guys in these videos here, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it helps me out a whole lot in spreading this information out to as many people who actually want to learn. And again, if you never want to miss another video like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you're notified every time these videos do end up getting posted live. And as always, massive shout out to all of the members of my private trading and investing community, Less Trades More Profits. I'm going to throw up some of the gain screenshots on the screen right here, but quite honestly, guys, there are too many absolutely epic winners and success stories to count at this point. For those of you guys that know, I mean, I've handed out 17 to 18 over 10x trades in the last 2 months here, with 7 to 8 of them coming in the last 2 weeks here. These types of returns and these types of trades, guys, are not going to stop. I keep telling you guys this. I don't know how many more of these absolutely epic trades that you guys want me to see call right in front of you. But again, remember, the prices for LTMP are increasing at the end of the month. If you guys want to lock in the lower rate here, again, that means the price you join at is the price you're locked in at. The price will never go up on you, and get 50% off your first month with code September. Make sure you guys check out that link down below. We'd love to have you in there. All of you guys can do this. This is the simplest yet most effective way to be operating in the market. We are doing something in LTMP, guys, that the trading community has literally never seen before. Nobody has ever seen the magnitude of these types of gains or the consistency at which I am handing these out. So, we'd love to have you in there. But without further ado, let's get into some of this information here, because the one thing that I really want to make clear to everybody, especially after this last week, is there's a big misunderstanding of kind of what's been happening here with interest rates and the Federal Reserve interest rate cuts here. So, when we start to take a look at what's actually going to happen in the near future here, or kind of in the midterm, with treasury yields here, it's very, very similar. What we are seeing right now is very similar to what we saw last September around this time. Again, that was the start of the interest rate cutting cycle, and honestly, this was probably one of my best bond calls of all time, calling the bottom in yields here before the Fed started cutting rates. Now, the reason why we're talking about this here is that you're going to see a lot of retail investors starting to run around saying, oh, the Fed is starting to cut rates here. That means we should just start piling into interest-sensitive names without really any regard for anything else happening in the market. Now, yes, the Federal Reserve is going to be cutting rates, and it is possible that bond yields start to move to the downside here, but we have to consider something very, very important. The question that you should be asking yourself now is not whether or not the Federal Reserve is going to be cutting rates in the future here, because they are. It's to what extent are they actually going to be cutting rates. That is what the bond market is going to be moving based on. It's going to be looking at the future here and saying, okay, what is the actual outlook for inflation data, the labor market, and growth, and that is what yields are going to move based on. So I want to make that very clear to everybody. I think I saw this a lot in the streams this week, that again, after the rate cut, people were very, very confused as to why bond yields were moving to the upside. Again, we saw a decent move down from July all the way until now in 10-year treasury yields here, from about that 4.5 area all the way down to about 4%. They started to shift back to the upside here, but again, there's not really anything crazy happening in the bond market in terms of what the market's projecting for rate cuts moving forward here, but I just want to make that clear to everybody, that I want everybody to start understanding, okay, these are the things that are actually driving the bond market, or actually driving the equity market, or these individual names, because if you can actually understand those key drivers that are the actual things moving the market here, well, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to make better decisions moving forward. Now, the first name that I want to talk about with you guys in this video here is obviously NIO. NIO has been an absolutely awesome performer recently. Again, this was one of the 18 10x trades that I gave out to the LTMP group here on this $5 breakout that occurred back in the beginning of August here. We had another nice setup here, but NIO has been on an absolutely awesome run. Now, remember, I owned about 4,000 NIO shares, or I do own 4,000 NIO shares at $4.55, so it's not a big position for me, but I do think that this one has a decent amount of potential moving forward here still. If they are able to execute on the goals that they have outlined to shareholders here. Now, for me personally, I would not be going out and buying NIO right now. Again, like I say all the time to everybody that watches the streams, watches these videos, and is in the LTMP group here, there is always a time and a place to be taking action in the market. The last time that actually really made sense to be purchasing shares of NIO was right around this $5 area on that breakout on the weekly time frame that I handed out to you guys. And then on the most recent pieces of news front for NIO, again, when we move over here, NIO has received about 100,000 cancelable orders for the ES8. Deutsche Bank says the imminent launch of the third generation ES8 and an improved balance sheet have driven NIO's stock price higher for 4 consecutive trading days. This came out on September 16th. NIO will officially launch the third generation ES8 this Saturday, which is today, with the official price expected to be further reduced from its already competitive pre-sales price. Now, again, when we think about the overall kind of macro conditions here and the strength of consumers globally, having these new cost efficiencies with NIO as a business and having them being able to come out and offer these models at lower price points, whether it be their flagship models or even on the Onvo or Firefly sub-brands, is definitely going to be something that is going to drive, again, new revenues, additional revenues, and increased volumes of sales for NIO moving forward. And that could definitely be something here that can drive, again, NIO towards a lot of those profitability metrics that they have outlined as their goals to their shareholders over the last couple of quarters here. Now, moving on to Palantir here, this one, again, guys, what did I say on this name? If you guys have been paying attention to the videos that I made over the last few weeks here, when we were talking about this area of Palantir here, what I was saying, and you can go back and take a look at some of the prior videos, was this is a very, very bearish setup on the charts, but there's something very interesting happening with Palantir here. Now, when we see these types of wicks, it's showing us that the sellers are aggressively trying to push Palantir to the downside, but the buyers are meeting that selling pressure in pushing price back to the upside. So the sellers were not strong enough to take Palantir any lower from the levels that it was trading at in this range. And what I was saying is that, again, it was pretty likely that we were going to get a little bit of a snapback move to the upside, and we could easily see Palantir moving up to those recent highs here. And that's exactly what we are starting to see. We saw a pretty decent basin break setup right at this 163 area. We saw another nice setup here that, again, I did outline to LTMP this week that I know a lot of you guys are in on this 172 break here as well. And Palantir is looking very, very strong going into this week's trading week, again, if the market can hold on here. Now, in addition, again, the billion-dollar reason to buy Palantir stock this week. Now, again, Palantir to me is one that it's not a buy at these current levels. It's not a short. This is really one that if it starts to set up on the charts here, it is a very, very fun one to trade. Again, I handed this one out to you guys in the $15 range. I mean, I gave you guys NIO at $4.55, Palantir in the teens. I've outlined HIMs like crazy for you guys recently, which we are going to talk about in a second. Sofi at $6.55 and also $13.60 recently, which we are also going to talk about. But again, there's a time and a place, guys, to be going out into the market and taking action. Like I always say, I think dollar cost averaging into individual names is not really the smartest idea at the end of the day. You want to make sure that you're using the charts to give yourself that really, really solid risk to reward entry here. But artificial intelligence remains one of the most sought-after investment themes, and Palantir has undoubtedly been one of the biggest winners of this trend, and now the company is once again in the spotlight as it edges closer to securing a major international contract. According to the Times of London, the UK Ministry of Defense is preparing to sign a roughly $1 billion deal with Palantir during President Trump's trip to the country. So, again, Palantir, even though it is boasting this absolutely crazy valuation in the short term here, is doing everything that they possibly can to grow their business and grow their revenues on the commercial side, and in this case, on the government contracting side as well. So again, if you're in Palantir from those low levels that I've outlined for you guys, you really just kind of get to sit back, relax, and enjoy the gains that you have been able to witness here over the last few years. Now, I want to move over here and talk a little bit about HIMS, because this is a name that we have been spot on with over really kind of the last couple of months here. One of the last times that I outlined HIMS as a really solid buy here was at this like $28 to $30 break, or $29 to $30 break here. We saw a massive move to the upside. Everybody was asking me if it was a smart idea to buy HIMS up at these levels. Obviously, I said no, because the stock was up almost 2x here, or 3x. 2x there from that prior purchase area that I was outlining. There were some really solid trade setups in here, but I want to talk a little bit about what we saw on HIMS recently and something that we've been covering here with the LTMP group. So when we take a look at HIMS here, this day right here, Thursday, August 21st, was that last day that I was saying, okay, if you really want some HIMS, if you want to add to your position, or if you want to initiate a position in this name, this is kind of the first spot where I would start looking at maybe dipping your toe back in. And here was the reasoning behind that. We have a very strong level of support right here that we were bouncing off of. And we also saw HIMS over the last couple of years here really respecting this daily 200 exponential moving average here. Now, the other thing that I outlined was obviously don't go crazy at this level right here, just because this was still a pretty bearish chart setup. And if we did break to the downside here, which you did flirt with one of these days, it was pretty likely that we were going to come back down into this low 30 area. But again, that's not what we ended up seeing. We saw a nice basin break setup to the upside here at 46. We saw a couple of other solid trade setups up here as well, but now HIMS is off to the races and looking like it wants to go back up to some of these highs here in the 64s and maybe get all the way back up to that $70 area here. Now, this is even with the FDA taking aim at HIMS and hers weight loss drugs in a new advertising blitz. Again, for the first time, federal health officials are taking aim at telehealth companies promoting unofficial versions of prescription drugs, including popular weight loss medications, as part of the Trump administration's crackdown on pharmaceutical advertising. Now, again, this really has to do with that whole situation that we are seeing here surrounding compounding. For those of you guys that are unfamiliar with kind of this issue here with HIMS, Novo Nordisk, Eli Lilly, there was a significant period of time where there were kind of supply chain issues with getting a lot of these weight loss drugs into the United States. And because of that, it was allowed for a lot of these telehealth companies to sell what are called compounded versions of these GLP-1s. What that effectively means, it's like the generic version of the name brand version, like an Ozempic or a Wegovy there. So when that started to end, the FDA comes out and basically says, okay, we are no longer going to allow these kind of, I don't want to say knockoff, but generic versions of these drugs to be sold into the market. But there's a gray area in a lot of these laws surrounding the situation with compounding. And here's the gray area. If you can make the argument that these compounded versions, again, the generic versions of these products here, are custom tailored to an individual patient, then you can continue selling them. And that's where these potential lawsuits in this FDA crackdown is coming in, because there is that gray area that does exist. Now, again, this can benefit one of our other pretty big holdings here, Novo Nordisk, but also HIMS isn't really moving aggressively to the downside based on this in the short term, because a lot of these risks that the market does see as it relates to this situation with compounding and HIMS is kind of been already priced in here, and the market already understands a lot of those things. So I wouldn't really expect this to be something to be worried about in the short term here, but it definitely is something to keep in mind. Now, the last name that I want to talk about here with you guys has been an absolute monster, not only just for all of the LTMP members here, guys, but also just for retail investors as a whole. Sofi was a name that I saw last July as being wildly undervalued and having a lot of potential. So when we end up seeing that, again, I have kind of a three-pillared approach to when I start to allocate capital into the market here. Again, I have between like 5 and 10 really high quality A+ ideas every single year, and I hammer them, and Sofi was one of those in the year 2024. more. 655 was my entry price. I actually was hoping, it was right around these days right here. I was actually hoping that I was going to be able to get SoFi a little bit lower with some additional purchases under $6. Didn't end up getting those purchases, but again, we have seen an absolutely monster run with SoFi, approaching that $30 area here, guys. Congratulations to everybody in LTMP. Congratulations to all the other retail shareholders that are in this name. This has been absolutely awesome. Now, recently, back in May, I did outline this weekly breakout for you guys here at 1360 on SoFi here. So I want to kind of show you guys this on the chart. We see a nice move to the upside, nice period of consolidation on top of the daily 10 exponential moving average here. 1360 was the break to the upside. This one was handed to you guys for free, so there's really no excuse to not be making money on any of these ideas that I've sent out to you guys for free over this last year here. And SoFi is up more than double from those levels down here. Now, a lot of people have been asking me recently, is SoFi a name right now in your portfolio that you are considering to trim? I own it really low. I have a very significant gain on it. And what I will say is, to a lot of you guys that are maybe new to the market, what I want you to start looking at more is being more thesis driven in the market. So if you have a thesis as to why to be in a certain name and you are entering at really solid risk to reward areas, you really don't have to worry about all that much when you see these big moves to the upside. Now, I want to kind of make this more clear to you guys because I don't think that's the best explanation. And the best way to look at that here is to look at one of our prior kind of mid to long-term investment ideas, and that was Philip Morris here. So one of the main things that we were looking at on Philip Morris to kind of build out our thesis when I outlined this one for you guys and everybody in LTMP at $95 here was Zyn shipments. So for those of you guys who don't know, Zyn, again, those nicotine pouches, very, very, very popular in the United States and starting to get very popular globally. But those shipments into the United States were continuously moving aggressively higher here. They were the growth rate on those was absolutely nuts. And this was a very, very solid opportunity here to start initiating a position in Philip Morris. So you saw a massive move up in equity. You saw 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 dividend payments as well that you were able to receive. And then what happened on this earnings day right here? Well, this was the first time over the last few years that the year-over-year shipment volumes of the Zyn product actually decreased. That's when you start to trim or sell some of your position there because the thesis is starting to change. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I know we went a little bit off topic at the end of this video here, but in general, guys, that's going to wrap up this video here. If you guys did enjoy the information and analysis that I provided for you guys in this one, make sure you go down and hit that like button. Costs you nothing to do it, but it helps me out a whole lot, spreading this information out to as many people who actually want to learn. And again, make sure you guys are subscribed, turn on notifications so you're notified every time these videos go live. For those of you guys that are hopping into LTMP with us, welcome. We'd love to have you in there. It is, again, the best place to come and learn how to operate in the market from a short-term perspective, mid-term perspective, and long-term perspective. Again, guys, the question that you can ask yourself at this point, the really only question, is obviously not whether or not LTMP works, because it is so overtly obvious that it does from all the results that I show you guys every single day. But the question you really should ask yourself is, how many more of these life-changing trades are you okay with missing? I'm just going to keep handing these out to everybody and changing everybody's lives for the better. So, guys, that is going to wrap up this one. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.